Grand Rising. This is a guided meditations and more with me today, Raan Oosha. And today I will be speaking to Ade about his spiritual journey. I met Ade about a year and a half ago on another podcast, and we kept in contact. And Ade interviewed me a few months ago. So we thought it would be interesting to turn the tables and speak to Ade about his spiritual journey. So this is a guided meditations and more. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the message board. Grand Rising, Ade.
Grand Rising, Ron. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. This is not something that I normally am used to doing. So this is a new thing for me. I'm used to being on the other side of the table.
Has anything come up for you in preparation for this show, the fact that you're going to be speaking about your journey?
Not really. There are some things that were and that were coming up like just naturally, but I forgot them all. So there was not much preparation. I don't think, but yeah, we'll just see where it goes.
Okay. Well, I've got Ade's bio here. So Ade Richardson is a writer, director, and podcaster. Growing up on the border of Bedford, Stuyvesant, and Crown Heights in Brooklyn, New York, Ade benefited from the rich cultural and ethnic diversity of the area. The people in his neighborhood inspired many characters that he would create for his films. Ade's talent for film directing was developed at Brooklyn College, where he studied under Professor Robert Tutak. Ade uses his passion for writing and directing to find a greater truth about himself and the world around him. In 2010, he started his film production company, Tatari Films, with the intention to make films that inspire people to reach their highest potential. Hello, Ade. I thought we'll get straight into that, Ade, about your filmmaking and the process you go through and how that has been part of your spiritual journey.
Sure. Well, I think, for me, it begins with writing. And I start off with, I really enjoy free writing. So just writing spontaneously, whatever's coming up. And so it's kind of like journaling in a way. And it's a way for me to express whatever emotions or ideas that are there. And as I'm writing, things start to take form and start to take a direction. And from that, I can see certain themes that I want to explore. And those themes are usually connected to this longing inside to discover truth, to discover more about myself and the world around me. So that's pretty much the process. It starts with the writing, and then I may think, okay, well, I like what I wrote, so I start thinking about characters and things like that. There's different ways that I approach it. I may approach a film through a character, and the character is representing some sort of themes that I'm pulling out of myself, and just some ideas that I've been interested in and want to explore. And then I started thinking about visuals, and occasionally I might even sketch some ideas out, some characters, or I might start doing a very rough type of storyboard. And so it's your question was how is it how's it connected with my spiritual journey? Was that it? Or
Yes.
yeah, it's very much connected, um, because it's a way for me to express myself, and I think in me expressing myself or sharing myself, it's sort of telling a part of my story, and I think that sharing stories is a way to communicate with others, and through this exchange, other people are identifying with it, but also I am discovering more things about myself. So it's connected in that way.
Yeah, I watched the film Shades of You, and it was like you gave us an insight into someone's very personal thoughts and feelings. Could
Yeah,
you explain a bit about that, please?
yeah, that was pretty much Shades of You, is uh, that was insight into myself. So that's what you were seeing. It was part of my journey. And that film um, began with a poem, so, and that poem came out of some inner struggle that was going on. So part of my spiritual practice that has been important for me is the practice of um, looking at what's here, what emotional content, what habits, some people may call it the shadow aspects. So looking at that stuff, and relaxing with it, opening to it, being curious about it. So, I have a lot of habits that continue to come up, and for a lot of my journey, a lot of my life, they trigger guilt and shame. So part of my process, what has been kind of moving away from the guilt and shame so that I can be with the raw emotion, and be with whatever content was there, with curiosity, and discover what is at the root with it. Whereas what's whereas if there's a layer of guilt and shame, then it's really hard to discover what's there, to discover the truth of it. So, at that time in my life, when I wrote that poem that eventually became the film, I was going through some of my old patterns were coming up, and so I sat, after a little bit of struggling with it, I eventually sat with the emotional content, and open to it, and just gave it my attention and my awareness. And eventually I relaxed with what was there. And and I felt it in the body too. So the emotions were, I tracked the emotion into the body, and I can feel where there was like a gripping sensation where I had been resisting it. And so my practice is to breathe into that area of the body. And it's something that my teacher has taught me to do. And eventually I relaxed with it. And I saw under the layers, the conceptual layers that I that I put there, when I got beneath the layer and got to the raw sensation and the energy, and was able to relax with it, there was this compassion that welled up within me. And it was compassion towards myself, this opening to these aspects of myself. And when that happened, there was this release of creativity. And that became the poem Shades of You. So when that released, I just needed to write. So I grabbed my iPhone, and there's the notes section, because I think I was in the city in Manhattan. I live in New York. I'm in Westchester, but I was in Manhattan on the subway, and I grabbed the phone and I started writing Shades of You. And the first draft, I knew I had everything that I wanted to capture in that first draft. So all I had to do was polish it a little bit, and so I did that. And then I thought, and especially for that poem, the visuals came very easy. I got the visuals for that poem, and how did it go after that? So I recorded the audio. My intention was to make a film, and I would narrate it. So I would do the narration for my poem, and put the images over the narration and some music. And then I was looking for an actor. And so I found Andrew Manning, who's the actor in this project, and I asked him, and he said, yeah, let's try it out. And then Andrew, I'm glad he said this, but Andrew said, I love the poem, but I think I should read it. He said, I think I should do the narration, because I sent him the audio track with my narration, and he said, I think I should do it. And he has a great voice, and he's an actor. And I said, and his reasoning made a lot of sense. He said, I think I'd feel more connected to it if I did the narration. And then, and I said, yeah, let's go for it. And he did the narration. We rehearsed, very little rehearsal. We talked about the concepts and things like that. And again, this was another part of the process where where it's essential to my spiritual journey, because it's that connection with another person who's reflecting back to me the things that I wrote in this poem that came out of things that I was experiencing. So he was reflecting them back and giving his take, and kind of we were co-creating this project, in this sort of yeah. So that's how it went. It was a really great project. One of I think it's my favorite film that I've done, because it part of my journey has been a journey towards wholeness, a journey from head to heart, so that's that captures part of that.
You said about compassion for yourself. Could you explain more what that really means for you? Compassion for yourself.
Sure. Well, I think, well, I'll explain it this way. This is an example I sometimes use. If a child comes to a mother, and the child is crying, or the child is expressing some sort of emotion, on a good day, the mother or father might give the child some attention without trying to fix, make the child feel a different way, without saying, no, that's wrong. You're wrong for crying. You're wrong for, being upset. On a good day, the parent might be able to offer this attention, loving attention. And I think when when we give something attention, that's an act of compassion. That's an act of love. You know, if someone's hurting and we give them attention, that's an act of compassion. And we see it on the large scale with what's going on in our country. You know, there's groups of people that have been discriminated against, marginalized, and many times they're trying to make their voices be heard, but a lot of times they're met with opposition. No, just get over it. No, you should just feel another way. So that's like the opposite of compassion. So the self-compassion is simply offering that attention, that loving attention, offering that air to yourself, to those aspects of yourself. So if I'm feeling scared, if, you know, if I'm feeling panicked, you know, or whatever is going on, you know, what I may have been taught was to repress those emotions as a way to stay safe. Maybe I tried to express those emotions as a child, and you know, unfortunately, and I'm sure parents don't do this on purpose, but maybe my parents, in some way, um, gave me the idea that my emotions aren't welcomed and that I won't get love and safety if I express them. So I learned to repress. And when we repress, we kind of, as a child, when we have big emotions and repress, part of what we do is we hold the breath. And that's why, and then it becomes a habit. And you know, there's a lot of adults especially when they're learning meditation, and breathing exercises, they're realizing that they don't bring the breath all the way down to the belly. So they realize that their chest breathing, and they're not breathing fully. You know, even in right now in this interview, I have to remind myself to breathe fully, you know, because I get a little anxious, and that's okay. So just giving attention to those aspects, that part that is feeling frightened, that part that is feeling insecure, you know. So, you know, usually many times when I'm feeling angry, you know, in relationship, or when I'm relating with someone at work, or with, you know, in an intimate relationship, if I feel triggered and I react with anger, and if I take a step back, I may notice that under that anger is a mask for another emotion. Maybe under that is the feeling of not feeling good enough. Now, if I'm a way that I'm not compassionate with myself is if I beat myself up, like, you know, and I may not be conscious of this, but the beating myself up can be that, you know, what's a matter with you, you know, that resistance, or, you know, you're doing this again, you know, what the heck is wrong with you? Compassion is, okay, that's curious. You reacted that way, and let's see what's underneath that, and giving attention, being patient, looking at what's underneath the anger, looking, you know, seeing what's there, being curious about it, letting, and I, you know, for me, I think that takes some patience, you know. Like, one of the things I appreciate so much, like, when I'm going through difficult times, I have a pretty decent support network that I can turn to. And I think for me, that's essential. You know, I do my own work, but sometimes I may call a friend, you know, talk to someone. And so that person will give me their time. They'd be patient. They listen, and that's compassion, you know. So if I'm not able to offer compassion to myself, can I really offer compassion and love in an authentic way to another person? I don't know if I really can, if I, because if that other person is, if qualities in that other person are the same qualities that I beat myself up over, that's probably going to trigger, and the energy is within myself is probably going to be that of a sort of resistance energy. So I'm probably going to be kind of keeping that person at a certain, I'm not going to be real open, there's going to be this guardedness, about me. And even saying that, part of the self-compassion is also realizing that that resistance is tied into my survival mechanism as well. So being compassionate about that, See, I grew up around a lot of trauma. My family has been traumatized, very close family members have gone through really devastating experiences that were passed down to all of the kids, and and my ancestors have been through a lot of trauma that has been passed down. So my nervous system and my survival mechanism might be a little bit more wound up than other people who may be able to get into that relaxing with things much easier. Whereas with me, it takes a bit of work. So, I need to be a little bit more patient with myself when it comes to that.
Are you able to, when these feelings arise, see them in the moment, or does it take a while for you to look at them, maybe later on?
I would say yes and no. Yeah, so both. Sometimes, most of the times I'm conscious of it, unless it kind of catches me off guard. I know that sounds funny, but if something hits me out of left field, then sometimes I may just have that. I may. So I guess whether do I still react from an unconscious way? And the answer is yes. So I will still react in an unconscious way. And so that happens, and then it takes some time, and eventually I will start, when the nervous system is calmed down, sometimes the best thing I can do is to breathe. Just focusing on my breath. Easiest way is equal breaths, maybe inhale to the count of 5, exhale to the count of 5. There's other breathing exercises I can do to relax the nervous system. But that one is like a very easy one to stick to, because, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but when I focus on the breath, it gives my nervous system the message, or gives the brain the message that things are okay. But I found, for myself at least, it takes some persistence and it takes patience. So it doesn't happen. It's not a quick fix. It happens, but I have to stick with it, and eventually it just all, relaxes. Or maybe I may go for a long walk. So that's the beginning of, becoming conscious of what's there. When I'm unconscious, I'm in survival mode, and I forget what part of the brain I'm functioning in. I think it's the lower part of the brain. I forget, people, you may know what part, but by relaxing the nervous system, it brings consciousness to the other part of the brain, and I'm able to function in a more conscious and more healthy and way where I'm able to respond to the situation rather than react to whatever is going on in my life.
So is this your meditation practice, and what exactly does meditation mean to you?
So is it yes, it is part of my meditation practice. And it's not that I do the emotional processing religiously per se, although I did when I first discovered it, because when I first begin something that I find is helpful, I go all in. I have that kind of personality. I do things to the extreme. So for me, I have to stay away from like any mind altering chemicals. I don't drink any alcohol. I don't do any sort of drugs or anything like that. Even coffee, I could only have a little bit, like a cup. I'm very sensitive to caffeine. I have to stay away from all things like that, because the way my mind is, I go to extremes, so I need to do things with moderation. But that being said, when I first got into meditation, I was meditating at times 5 hours a day, like, sitting there for 5 hours. Like minimum, sometimes it was like 2 hours, and I would meditate all throughout the day as well, in addition to the formal stuff, and I know this, I'll get to the question, but I began with Ramana Maharshi. He was my first teacher. Actually, Muji led me to Ramana Maharshi. So I have a great affection towards the teachings of Muji and excuse me, the practice of self-inquiry. So Ramana Maharshi, when I discovered him, I read the little pamphlet. It's free if anyone's interested. The PDF. Who am I? I'm not sure if you've read that, but excuse me. So and I was already discovering some of this with the following the pointers of Muji. So when I picked up Who Am I, it just clarified this knowingness. It pointed to this space, this recognition that I was aware of at all times since childhood. There was this knowing. So whenever things would go, something difficult would happen in life, I wasn't conscious of this, but there was this knowing, okay, there was this part that was always, well, things are just fine. Things are okay. I couldn't put words to it, but, so that enabled me to continue to have hope, to continue to go through the difficulties of life and the different things that I went through. And so when I read Ramana Maharshi's Who Am I, he pointed to that. But there was always this doubt, which is connected to this feeling of not being good enough, feeling of I don't deserve good things. So there was this connection of, well, okay, well, like that's the treasure, but I'm not deserving of the treasure, which was already there. So I'm already the treasure, but there was like this thought, this feeling of doubt. Well, I'm not deserving of it, so maybe that's not it. So I have to keep this little egoic thing to keep the searching going. And to get back, and maybe we could revisit that, but to get back to your question, and maybe this ties into the emotional processing part of the practice. Part of that is tied into observing that feeling of not being good enough. So giving that attention with compassion, seeing what's there, so that when I can kind of include that into the mix of things, so like I think Nisargadatta says, I am that, but then at some point he says, and I am this. So the this is the things of the world, and that includes these aspects that make up my personality, and like all of these things are consciousness. All of these things are part of who I am. So part of my journey is when I can relax with these resistance to the insecurities, the part that feels undeserving, the part that feels doubt. Then underneath that is this is me, you know. It's just, you know, there's not much to say about that. You know, there's just this awareness. When it's, and this is just my opinion from my perspective and from my leg on the journey, which I'm willing to, you know, change or upgrade as more things are revealed. So I just want to say that. When I've been able to open to these different aspects of myself and relax to them, then what there is this awareness, and this awareness that is not going into the let me see if I could, you know, put this into words. This awareness that is not in this becoming mode, you know, like this. So consciousness can become, you know, can become all sorts of things. It can like when I am feeling, when I'm in the dramas of life, when different circumstances are happening, let's say I get into the argument with someone and I'm feeling horrible, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, and I'm caught up in that drama. This is consciousness as well, you know, that is kind of taken on this, you know, this drama, as well as, so it's in the drama as well as not being in the drama at the same time. And so it's really, when I think of it, it's really incredible, you know, it's really like extraordinary that we can do this, that we can have this conversation, that yeah, you know, when you know, when that is really felt, it's really it's really extraordinary, you know. So
Yeah, so you wrote about the other day about still seeking. So what is this seeking?
hmm. So what is this seeking? So the seeking, as far as I can see, is trying to find my, see, when I speak about it, it sounds quite ridiculous. Trying to find myself, you know, like, wait, you see, it kind of like, it kind of kills it right away. It stops it right there. You know, see, when we're in this, when we're in this space that we're in right now, then it doesn't make much sense, you know. So what is this? What is this seeking? I mean, I could kind of make something up and like, use my imagination, and but that's kind of like when I'm fully being fully aware that it's that the seeking is made up in a way. When we're in this space, then it has no real value at all. It has no um, it has no substance. Like I could say something, and it would pretty much be like the words won't, the words will be coming from my mind. It wouldn't be coming from you know, this space. So,
Yeah,
but I can say a few, you know, if I can, what I would say is trying to find myself, um, like trying to find myself, trying to in other things, you know. So so trying to find myself in other things, and then discovering that I'm not there, you know, because obviously, I'll give an example, and that's from the reading that you that post that I wrote. So you know, part of the post was I was part of that post came from meditation. You know, it came out of my meditations. I was sitting in meditation, and you know, there's a lot of talk about the date 1221, and you know, the big astrological importance in it, and in spiritual uh, relevance, and a shift that's taking place in our world. So for the last few days, as I was, and this usually happens at night when I'm laying down for bed, I have a lot of energetic stuff going on, you know, and I don't like to talk too much about it, but like I pretty much feel like when it goes on, I kind of feel like someone plugged me into a wall, like I'm a battery, and a surge of energy is running through my body, and and this happened like haven't had big impacts of it lately, but it happened a few days ago on that date. And so the mind was, oh, this is it, you know, like, hold on for the ride. Here we go. Going into you know, so, so then, you know, the question is, well, going into what? What is it? You know, what am I going to like just go be like plugged into the wall, like feeling this, like my body won't maintain that. I mean, because it's exhausting after I go through those experiences. I feel drained after. It feels very blissful, very nice. But after, it takes some recovery time. And then it brings up a lot of stuff as well. So I feel more sensitive. So at first it feels really nice, but then there's a crash in that comes after. You know, but like I said, I like to go all the way. So when I'm in it, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just, you know, but then there's this knowing this isn't it, you know, unless, because if this was it, I'd be shortchanging myself because I'm experiencing this now and it's nice, you know, but what am I just going to be like that for the rest of my life? The body, I couldn't be like that while holding this physical body. It would never work. You know, the body wouldn't be able to, wouldn't be able to survive through that. So then it was just another thing I check on my list. I realized I was looking for myself in that. So it was also comforting. Okay, well, that's not it. And so I didn't have to make that a big deal. So all experiences, whether they're good, blissful, or bad, are just, they're the impermanence. They're the, as Thich Nhat Hanh likes to say, they're the coming and going of life. They come and they go, like this too shall pass. So that's one of the, I think, important truths in life, that the impermanence. So things come and go. Eventually this body comes and goes. And not to hold on to those things. So if I'm looking for myself in one of those things, or if I'm trying to find myself in a relationship, in a job, in other things, eventually that job is going to go. You often hear stories of people, their whole sense of self is in a job, and then they retire, and there are studies that show that with some people, when they retire, they start getting a lot of health problems. They're kind of like everything was in that job. They're not sure what to do with themselves. And understand, like, I can understand that. Or a relationship. So the marriage breaks up, and then you're devastated, which some of that is natural. But if your whole sense of self was put into that relationship, then it may be even more difficult. So when I'm seeking myself in other things, then I just need to remind myself that those things come and go. So is this self that we're seeking, is it something that comes and goes? Then it's not really a grand self if it just, if it just comes and goes. So part of the disappointment was, wow, this is not it. And part of the gift was, wow, this is not it. And so that points back to the one that is noticing all of this, the one that is these words are coming out of, these thoughts are coming out of. So it points back to that. And then the noticing that, oh, okay, well, I'm already myself. And then the noticing of the thought, well, how do we capitalize on that and hold on to that? And so that's a thought. And then the noticing of that thought. Okay, well, that's just a thought. And so the thought is another one of the impermanent things in life, the coming and going, the this too shall pass. And then the things that are going on in the body, the nervous system, the feeling of resistance of, oh no, I had that thought. So there's a thought, and then there's a, oh no. So now I'm going to lose myself. Now that I'm speaking it, it sounds ridiculous, but then the body may feel it still, depending on how you were wired, how your nervous system is. And so when the body feels it, it feels real. It feels like, well, this is myself. I'm this contracted thing, this contracted, person. That's how it feels. But then this body will go. This body changes. This body was once young. This body has gone through all sorts of changes. This body may feel contracted at one moment, and then the next moment it doesn't. So is who I am subject to all these changes? Well, my answer is yes and no. Because there's this power, and again, I'm just speaking from my perspective, there's this power of of consciousness to take on all of these forms and all of these experiences, which is the which is a miracle, basically. You know, it's really extraordinary that this what some may call Maya, you know, is, I look at it as such a gift, such a beautiful gift, you know, this life, that we can sit here and have this conversation, that we can have this body. So part of my experience or part of my journey is to, I mean, it's quite simply, is also a journey of love. So to love all of this, to be compassionate towards all of these qualities, this gift, you know, to know that I'm part of nature, to know that when I look out into nature, or when I look out into the stars, and let's say you're having some sort of drama, some circumstance in your life, is which a lot of people are going through now with COVID and other things that are going on. So let's say that you're having a hard time with dealing with these things, and there's some fear, and there's a feeling of, well, will I be taken care of? Now, if you look out into nature and you look out into the stars, into space, just knowing that the same intelligence that's harmonized in all of the universe, that's harmonizing all of nature, we're not separate from that. This heart that's beating in my body, you know, I'm not looking at my watch. I don't wear a watch, but if I were, I wouldn't be looking every second to make sure that my heart is beating. You know, I'm not paying attention to make sure that the blood is flowing properly, you know, in my body. You know, I'm not conscious of that, you know, all the time, but there's a trust there's a faith that things are working just fine, you know, but somehow, I'll speak for myself, there's this thought that, and I wrote, and that's another one of the poems that the films that I sent you, which it started off with, there's a thought that I'm lost, you know. So, you know, there's a thought that I'm not going to be taken care of, you know, that I'm going to jump off of this cliff of uncertainty, and that there won't be a net underneath to catch me. And you know, and so, but yet, you know, just reminded myself that this intelligence is taking care of me. I'm not separate from nature. I'm not separate from the universe. Is an important thing for me to remember.
You mentioned, you know, live the uncertainty, living in the uncertainty. How challenging is that for you?
It can be very challenging. I grew up in, you know, I grew up in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. That was my beginning in the 80s. And it was, at that time, it was like one of the worst areas in Brooklyn. Crack was at a high, you know, violence was, you know, I saw people shot, I saw people stabbed, you know, right in front of me. You know, it was normal to hear gunshots and things like that. And also growing up in there was a lot of uncertainty in my childhood, and in my, you know, besides outside in my family as well, there was a lot of things that were going on that were difficult for me. I won't get into the specifics of that out of respect for, certain family members, but it was difficult growing up. So, we all have, part of the brain is developed to seek certainty. Neuroscientists view a lot of his work is he talks about this, that the brain is developed to know. That's how we, if and it was only for practical purposes to create a sense of reality that was, it didn't have to be real, but it had to be real enough to enable us to function in the world, and meaning to enable us to survive and to thrive. So perhaps the first, human, he gives this example, might have been walking and fell into a hole. So then the second human, kind of the brain says, okay, that thing is a hole. So whatever language they use at that time, it began this conceptual framework, this way of communicating to ourselves and to others, different, like a kind of a roadmap for living. So it tied into this is certainty, and certainty is tied into our protective mechanism. And so we all have that. So growing up, with all of this uncertainty going on and this violence and everything in my life, it was very difficult. It still is to, I was trying to control everything in any way that I could. And part of the way that I controlled was by growing up, manipulating, control, not being honest with people. Growing up, I would people please. That was my big thing. I was always sarcastic. I was kind of like the clown, like joke, like made people laugh to keep people at a distance. And so I never let anybody in, because I was afraid of what they would see. If they would see those parts of myself that I wouldn't want anybody, that I didn't like about myself, then I wouldn't get love. Then, I'd be cast out. So I didn't know that consciously at that time, but I'm, now looking back, I can see that very clearly. And growing up in my neighborhood, none of the guys I grew up with, expressed their emotions. We were all stoic. It was all about fighting. I used to get into a lot of fights and, all of that sort of stuff. And so, so stepping into uncertainty has been a process for me. And it hasn't been an easy one. And it's been one I've had to get a lot of help with. And one of the biggest teachers has been life. Because you think the world should spin a certain way, and life, we've all learned this, we're all learning this with COVID, life is going to say, no, that's not how it goes. And it's such an important lesson. First of all, it kind of, it humbles us, it humbles me. And also I think it's preparation for when we eventually have to give up our body, at some point. So, that's like one of the things, so I want certainty, but one of I can imagine one of the most difficult parts to let go of that is when I get to the point of when the body goes through the process of deteriorating, and at some point I have to let go into the great unknown. I can talk a lot of spiritual stuff now, and I have these experiences, and I do have this sense of awareness and everything else, but I don't know what's on the other what's on the other side of that veil per se. you know, because I haven't been there. I don't know what's going to happen, you know, how much the body is tied into my perception of reality or things of that nature. So again, to answer your question, I'm beginning to step more into uncertainty, but to give you an example of how I'm like a creature of habit, I wake up in the morning, I have the same thing for breakfast. I pretty much put the coffee cup on the same side and the water on the same side, you know, like it's all to feel this sense of safety, you know. On an adventurous day, I might every like maybe once a month have a different thing for breakfast, but rarely. Or maybe I'll put the water on the other side of switch things up. And maybe, you know, that's something I could practice with little things like that. But yeah, so that's been a process for me.
Has the practice allowed you to see lots of things inside yourself that you didn't realize? Maybe things that you had gone through and held on to that you didn't know or didn't expect?
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of things. Hmm. I mean, there's so many things. I feel like that's a sort of a constant thing is being revealed. So when I think I know something, that's why whatever I say, I I need to add a disclaimer that whatever I say is probably going to be like, you know, when you write something in the sand and a wave comes up and washes it. So life is going to do that. Whatever I say, you know, because it's just words, you know, whatever I say, I mean, it's not just words, but it is and it isn't. But when, you know, it's going to be upgraded, you know, so these perspectives, and I'm learning so many different things. First of all, I'm not this horrible person that I was always running away from. So this idea that I had of myself, um, like for example, I'll give a when you know I have a lot of insecurities, so and a lot of times they're masked with angers with you know by anger. So if I'm in a confrontation with someone and I'm being defensive, you know, then later on I say, okay, I'm being defensive. What was I hiding? You know, like what was I defending? And then I like, why am I continuing to blame this other person and focus on them? It's not helping me. It's just kind of fueling this resentment and maybe giving me this brief feeling of, you know, this righteous anger, like, yeah, I'm right, and this person, but there's this knowing that that's not truth, you know. And not to say that there's something wrong with anger. There's times where, you know, it's justifiable to be angry. But I, you know, in certain circumstances, I may look, okay, well, I'm feeling this fear and anger, a lot of fear. And so I may look and see, okay, well, why do I feel that? Like, what is it triggering? And maybe it's triggering this feeling of not feeling good enough. And that was always, oh, I don't feel good enough. So I may look within and notice this feeling not feeling good enough. Now, this was what I've been running away from my whole life, to the point of I didn't even realize that it was a feeling of not being good enough. And then I equated this feeling of not being good enough, meaning that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not good enough, basically. So I needed to explore, see what that is. And so I learned something about what I learned about myself is that if I look within this, if I feel the emotion, first of all, I learned that it's okay to feel the emotion of not feeling good enough. okay, feel it. If I need to cry, I can cry. And then I go deeper into the emotion, into the body. And this is where it gets really interesting. So this is the root, that feeling of what I've been moving away from pretty much all of my life. And when I go into it and feel the resistance that's there, and even open to resistance, knowing that this resistance has an innocence that's inherent to it, meaning it's trying to protect me. It's saying no. So the ego isn't discerning that there's not a lion chasing me or someone trying to kill me. It's just saying danger, there's danger. So what I'm learning is this not good, this what I took as not good enough is this vast intelligence that's within, trying to protect this mechanism, trying to protect the body. So it's like, and when I look into that, then I can, okay, so it's this resistance, and I breathe into it and I give it, then I notice that there is this power of directing consciousness to this area just by giving it attention, not by doing anything, not by trying to make it change, not by trying to make it move, just by giving it attention. It's communicating that it's okay to relax. And that energy begins to free up. That aspect of myself begins um, to continue whatever journey it is trying to, excuse me, is trying to make. And so I learned that it's just energy, awareness, consciousness, and energy. And so, and maybe the energy takes on a different flavor. So certain energy may be warm, it may be hot, it may, but it's just energy. It's neither good or bad. That's the ego labeling things. Well, I'm good. And it's not I am good or bad. Like, so it's through all of that. And then when I get to that energy, then I can move that feel throughout the body, and notice that the energy is all throughout the body. Now I can feel sitting on the chair I'm sitting on, that the energy goes down into the chair. I don't know where I end and the chair begins, where that boundary is, so things begin to kind of um, break down in a way from the we're so indoctrinated to, and beautifully so, to think in these conceptual ways to create this reality that we're in now. But when we observe, within and open to within, then it takes on a things aren't so solid and cemented in the way that I had perceived them before. And so that's really like noticing myself in a whole different way, because myself becomes, you know, um, not just this Ade, but it becomes like everything. It's you know, so it's yeah.
So is there a difference between knowing it and understanding these terms and then living it? How do we get from the knowing to living it?
Yeah, I would say there is a difference, the knowing to the living it. I mean, in a way, I feel like we're always living it, but we don't know it. So, you know, so it's kind of like realizing that we are living it. We didn't realize we were living it, So, but it can't. I don't think it can be something to intellectually sort of like. for example, right now I feel this presence, this energy being exchanged between you and I. Like there's this presence. So, you know, there's this silence, and silence meaning, not meaning that absence of voice or vibrations or sounds or anything like that. So this is, you know, living it, which is already living. So it's like life is living itself. So this is living itself. There's, doesn't matter whether I know it or not. It's a gift to kind of like have a front seat view, you know, to be here and say, oh wow. It's just wow, you know. But even that, I also leave room for, okay, well, that's a part of it, but there's room for, you know, more will be revealed, you know, more will probably be revealed, you know. So and I don't know, because more has always been revealed in some way. So I feel like in some ways, and you know, it's hard to put these things in words, but I'm just for the sake of speaking, it's like, okay, Ade, here you go. Here's some more. You know, so like you can have a little bit more now, a little bit more now, and you know, but those are just words, you know, and but that's just speaking from my experience. Now, you know, some people say, well, the result of you know, in the spiritual circles, they may say if you're living it, you would see it manifest in certain ways, and people talk about manifestation and you know, all of these, and kind of even in material ways and things like that, and I don't know about all that, you know. I'm a skeptic. I've always been a skeptic, and I'm a skeptic, you know, until I kind of touch things, like have direct experience with things. That I'm not cynical, but I'm a skeptic, you know, kind of like I like kind of being like a scientist, you know, in a way. Um, and I feel like it's the safer thing for me. So, you know, that's just the way that I'm built. But some people say you know, it will manifest in different ways. I do think it does manifest in more compassion, love, and these qualities. I think that's true. Um, it's been true for me, from my perspective. You know, if you want more of the truth, you'd have to ask my family, see what they what they have to say. They might have a different version of it. You know, maybe they'll say, "No, he's really irritating," or whatever. And you know, so you know, and there's always, and I'm okay with that. There's always more work to be done. You know, always. I don't think the quest and human evolution um, need to be two separate things. You know, I think I could, you know, someone say, hey, you're being an a-hole or whatever, you know, I can say, okay, well, in which ways am I doing that? You know, I still, you know, or hey, go take out the garbage, or, you know, do these sort of things, or, you know, there's something beautiful about the mundane things in life that in the beginning, when I was meditating, doing the 5-hour meditations and like going really, I was trying to transcend everything. I was bypassing everything. And, you know, I kind of enjoy washing the dishes and, you know, doing things like that. Uh, I get irritated my kids may irritate me. Sometimes I may snap and then feel remorse after that, or still have the things that come up for me. So, perhaps if I'm more evolved on the spiritual, realm, that these things will lessen. I don't know. I assume they will. Seems like they have, and I assume that they'll continue to lessen as I go along.
Thank you very much, Ade. I think this is a good point to leave for today. I didn't actually get around to asking you some questions, so maybe another time we can do it again, if that's okay with you.
Sure, and thank you, Ron. Thank you so much for. I enjoyed this very much. Just being present here with you, and this opportunity to share a little bit of my story, my journey. And before we do close, I wanted to know if you can share just briefly. Let us know, kind of fill us in with the book that you're working on, because I'm going to have you. We're going to switch seats again, and maybe first of all, maybe give us the name of your partner, and maybe a brief intro to what to as to what to expect. And we're going to have you on for a full interview, but I thought maybe you could just share about that.
Thank you. Well, I'm creating a book with my friend who's an artist. Her name's Antoinette, and it's about a character who sees the world in a unique way. She loves how she looks. She loves her giant afro hair. She loves her skin. And it's someone who has not been tainted with the what's good, what's bad, what's right, and what's wrong. So I've written the text, and at the moment we're working on the illustrations, but it's been a journey of fun and creativity. So I'm really enjoying it. And the aim is for the book to be out in 2021. And Antoine and I would love to come on to speak about it. So that'd be great.
Great. Yeah, I look forward to having you. So, yeah, so you want to take us out?
Okay. So thank you very much for this interview. Myself, Raan Oosha, and brother Ade Richardson on guided meditations and more. You can find the short film we talked about, Shades of You, on Ade's site and on my site and on YouTube. And you can contact Ade on Facebook. Anything else, Ade? Yeah, on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and you can also find me at Satari Films LLC.com, and I'll post links to all of those underneath this video. So there'll be links to my work and my website for whoever is interested.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This is great.
An honor to be the host of guided meditations and more.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.